the Evolution Security Podcast. Well, it has been quite a while. We have taken a small hiatus. I believe we've not put out 2 episodes, Eric.
Correct. I believe that's right.
It is good to be back. We've just had a crazy few weeks and just frankly, at that point, needed to prioritize and take a couple of weeks off to take care of some things that we had to take care of. And I don't know if I don't think we've ever fully taken a week off from the show, whether it be a full, both of us not do a show and then we do a throwback episode or something like that. But
yeah, we've had a couple of times where we went 2 weeks without posting a show. But yeah, not like this for certain. It was definitely the longest time without putting out a show than we've ever had since we put the show out. And for our audience members out there, we apologize if you're waiting for shows. Just know that we're back in business and we love hanging out with you guys. It's just we got day jobs and we've had a lot going on. So that's just the way it shook out.
well, the good thing is that we are here. And Eric, we frankly have a cool AAR or after action report
Review.
Excuse me.
Get this right, Civvy.
Yeah.
I'm playing with you, bro. Hey, an after action report is just as good, bro. I'm just messing with you.
Jerk. But so we've got an after action review.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Of the Tactical Twin birthday weekend together outside of Fort Bragg this last weekend. Not just the weekend, we spent out, even within my long drives, we spent 4 days together. And
it was awesome, man. Incredible time, bro. I loved having you here. So did Jana. And boy, so did Brody.
Oh, yeah. Tell my nephew dog hello for me, and hopefully he'll snort back something real sweet to me.
He was really upset, man, when you left. Like he acted similar to the way that he acts when I leave.
Oh, man.
So,
yeah, he's a sweetheart. It was a lot of fun having him around. Now, we rarely get together on our birthday. We've been able to be together on our birthday 2 times in about the last 15 to 20 years, I think. And this was the second time.
One of them the last one was in ECQC.
Yeah, that was an epic weekend for sure. But so I decided I was going to come there and visit you, come to your house for the first time. I decided I would get in my little go-kart, my little Subaru BRZ, and go on a road trip by myself. Drive 1,200 miles there from Jinx here to outside of Fort Bragg. I'll never call it Fort Liberty. And meet you. Yeah, it was, Eric, it was a full over 32 hours of driving for me. I'm going back and forth. The first day I did roughly 17 hours in total on the road. The first day I got there about 1:30 in the morning, as I recall. But yeah,
that's what I had when I got the call from you. Said that you were close to the neighborhood. Mm-hmm.
Well, so I'll say this real quick. Everybody knows how much of a music fan I am, and you are. 2 days before this trip, a devastating thing happened. My amp in my car started screwing up. Now, I'm not going to go into this, but the company that I've had 2 amps from start going out, the same brand, same model, went out. And this thing's going out before I'm going to drive for 33, 34 total hours by myself. That wasn't going to work right at
Nope.
all.
Mm-mm.
So, of course, they tried to blame my system on it. Eric, did I tell you that?
No.
You need to go to a tech and see what's in your system that's causing this. No, you've got 100% failure rate as far as I'm concerned with your amplifiers. So yeah, I won't ever buy from them again.
So trying to blame an input signal or the power cables or, stuff that's not very difficult to set up, man. Yeah, that's bull crap. In the industry that I'm in as a civilian, I'm involved in, not in the same area, but amplifiers, man. I know better than that.
I mean, people, yeah, they can mess up their stuff, but it's not going to happen over. If there was something wrong in my wiring setup that I did have a professional to do, now that doesn't excuse them from any wrongdoing. I'm not, but it ran for 2 weeks with the first amplifier, no problems. Long story short, it would, in about 30 minutes, it would run just fine for 30 minutes, and then one of the channels would start cutting out. And before it was my sub channel, this time it was all my full range channels would just shut off, and it would work just fine for 30 minutes or so.
Yep,
So yeah,
sounds like a heat problem.
Yep. It was overheating. It was overheating, and if there was something that was damaging it, it should have gone into protection mode. It never did. Right. So I don't want to go too far into that.
Sounds like some loose. Honestly, man, sounds like some loose solder joints. That as shit heats up, and yeah, that's kind of what that sounds like.
Well, so long story short, I was able to order an Alpine amp and install it myself the night before I left, and man, it worked great. So I was glad to be able to do that, because again, I would have been real upset sitting there with a Bluetooth speaker pointed at my head as I'm driving 80 miles an hour down the road.
Well, and Aaron, I'd have been upset too, because part of our hangout sessions were a couple of drives, hitting some errands and whatnot in your car, and I'd have been irritated if I had to deal with shitty sound.
I know you would, man. I had been excited to take you for a ride in my car, and you check out my stereo. So it was these were important things, audience. So bear with us. But Eric, I did want to say real quick before we dig into the meat of everything that we did while we were together. I did, once I got home, bro, there was a box of 3,000 more 9mm 124 grain 9mm bullets for my reload, which actually brought all my components in for my reloading system.
Awesome, man.
Excited so I've got everything in. I've even got, right before that, I had a bunch of stuff come in for cleaning brass, and I have it all now. I just need to read this book.
Which one did you get?
Modern Reloading, second edition by Richard Lee.
Oh, it's a Lee manual, right? Yeah,
yep,
bro.
Yep.
My original manual, I believe, was a Lee. Yeah, to me, man, there's so much to learn in those manuals. Obviously, they're kind of like the Bible of learning how to reload. So
yeah, it looks like I've got at least about 100 150 pages to read through, and Brian, our partner, said I had to read all this first. So
I agree with him, Aaron, and I remember doing the same thing in my manual. Now, granted, I started reloading when you and I were a lot younger, before I joined the Army.
oh yeah, I
Trying to
remember.
So it would have been when my wife and I were in our little duplex in the beginning of our marriage. So that would have been around 97, 98, somewhere
Oh,
in there.
I remember it vividly. I remember that room and you loading. You came up with you started actually casting your own lead bullets there for a while.
Yep. Yeah, I sure did.
But yeah, I'm stoked to get my reloading stuff going. I just wanted to give an update that I have all of it in. It's just time to start learning. I haven't even pulled my press out of the box, but I got my dies in and all that good stuff.
And I think I know what press you got, but what did you end up getting for the audience?
Yeah, it is hold on a second.
It's a 650, isn't it? Dylan 650.
I believe it's a 750.
Okay, that's right, Aaron. It is a 750.
So yeah. I got the Dylan Progressive, of course, XL 750 Deluxe kit, and I got conversion and dies and everything for 9mm and 223.
Awesome, so, man.
I got enough components to load 12,000 9mm and 6,000 223.
You're geared up, man.
Yeah, man. I have an accountant. I put all the components into a spreadsheet, and I had a budget, and I tweaked numbers and variables here and there to get to my magic number, my budget, and my budget allowed that 12,000 and 6,000. So
cool. Awesome, man. Welcome to reloading, man. It's in and of itself. It's a excellent activity, man. I put on podcasts, go out there and load, and it's cathartic, man. I enjoy it.
Well, the point I want to make clear is that I'm not doing it to save money, especially right now. It's a hedge against when ammo prices go up again, because 3 years ago when ammo prices shot up 5 times what they were when I was shooting 1,500 rounds or more a month, and then all of a sudden went crazy, and I was like, okay, I really should have set up a reloading system years ago, caught with my pants down, and there of course was no way I could get into reloading back then because components were flying off the shelf, and even components now are more expensive.
Yep.
So right now, for 9mm, for instance, it costs about the same to reload as it does to buy factory ammo. I haven't calculated what the savings will be on 223, but it's not going to be much different either. So,
well, at the same time, I think it boils down to you start saving a lot when you're using the brass over and over again, and especially picking up brass that it starts to save you money. And the other thing is, man, it's also a skill. I also believe it is also a celebration and liberty as well, man, being able to load your own ammo. So
I agree. Yeah, I'm stoked to be in on it. Well, Eric, I wanted to bring you in on one specific thing again before we get into the meat of things. You had something to talk about real quick.
Yep, real quick. I just want to implore our audience members out there, think about something that we talk about every now and then, and that is, if you do not do combatives, but you carry a pistol, you are just somebody else's holster. And that is attribution to Cliff Byerly, one of our coaches, one of our biggest supporters, by the way. And I want to remind folks out there that probably one of the most pivotal events that you can attend is the second annual Combatives Summit in Dilberville, Mississippi. And I don't know why that's so hard for me to pronounce, but it is. And that's the 20th through the 22nd of September, 2024 as this airs. And folks, I'm telling you, I say this all the time. When I went to the Combatives Summit last year, I compare it to Tac-Con. It's the Tac-Con of combatives. I mean, the best combatives instructors in the world are the key instructors and speakers. And folks, you need to go out there, combativesummit.com. And if you're not signed up, get signed up. It's an epic event. John Valentine and his folks have set that up. I promise you, it will be a lifetime memory, a lifetime of learning. So get out there and sign up.
All right, bro. So getting to go out to your house, man, was a lot of fun. And to be very clear, we didn't just get together to hang out. That we can't get together without having some pretty serious training. So there was quite a bit of training going on, but we did have an epiphany in the middle of just kind of hanging out one night that every time we are together, we're either at a convention, we're hosting an instructor, like, hosting an ECQC, or we're going to a Cecil Birch class or a Cliff Byerly class, or we're teaching a class together. Either way, we've always got pressure on us, kind of a more intense weekend. Well, this time it wasn't intense. And so it was real nice. We had a lot more downtime than I kind of thought we would. So it was pretty nice. And part of that downtime was getting some excellent food from my twin bro, Eric, which I'm convinced is one of the best cooks I've ever been around.
That's nice, bro. I appreciate that. Now, remember, I got a sous chef. My wife, she's a big part of that equation. Yeah. Thank you, man. That means a lot. I enjoy cooking a lot. My wife and I watch a lot of cooking shows and, research a lot. And yeah, it's a pastime that I enjoy greatly. And so, yeah, man, I didn't plan anything crazy. But yeah, I thought, man, I got these butcher box subscriptions. I get the grass fed meat, and I was looking in the fridge, and I'm like, first meal's going to be a pot of homemade chili, because I knew we could spread that out through the weekend. And I mean, we stretched it out a little bit, even went to the unhealthy side and had chili dogs made out of it.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was good.
Those were amazing.
And what else we do? We did pork chops one day and steak one day, and yeah, man, it was nice.
Excellent food, and yeah, the best steaks I've ever had. I hope people don't consider this and think Aaron's just speaking in hyperbole. Not at all, man. The best steaks I've ever had have been at your house.
Cool. Thank you, buddy.
And that was including this weekend. Those fillets you had were excellent. So, Eric, one more thing before we get into the training. Here's something that was pretty unique and fun. As everybody knows, we're musicians, right? Sorry if we repeat that so much and everybody knows it, but Eric and I, after one of the training days, we came back home and thought, you know what? Let's get a nap in, because we were a little worn out because we had gotten up early and did quite a bit of shooting in the heat. We took a nap, but then woke up. I grabbed some of my gear and you grabbed some of your gear, and we both started picking apart the song Pneuma by Tool. And anyone that may be familiar with that song, there's some crazy rhythmic stuff going on, crazy time signature changes, and if I mean, you could call it math rock, I guess.
Yeah, polyrhythmic for certain.
But there's, you know, I have a pretty deep understanding of music theory, and but when you're working on stuff like that, and when you're just playing rock music, you're not want to count everything out like you're in, you know, band class or something. Nothing wrong with that either. But so we both set out to pick apart sections of that song, and believe me, that in the time period we had, it was really, we could piece together a handful of those sections.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both separately practiced maybe 45 minutes,
Yep.
an hour, maybe.
I think,
max.
yeah, I was that. Yeah.
And for, you know, I know most of our audience members are combatives and shooters. But yeah, man, that song moves in and out of 12/8, 11/8, and 10/8 signature on drums, at least. And of course, if it's on drums, it's in. But man, as good as I'd like to be at completely being able to count that stuff out and learn that aspect of it, man, I am absolutely, at that point, I was just memorizing the changes, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, same here. And then, yeah, after that hour, we both went into that room that you're in right there. I grabbed my Dr. Z amp and one of my Cole guitars and cranked up that amp I had with me, and it was like we were doing band practice in our parents' house when we were 18, 19 years old,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
absolutely.
Except
It
for
was a
this time, we
blast.
both had earplugs in.
Yeah, there's the big difference.
I think that was the main difference.
Both of us, let me get my hearing protection.
But yeah, we had a blast, and I'll tell you, man, we put together mainly the bridge coming out of the kind of a cool riff and the chorus, and we put that all together and played through it a handful of times. And I'll tell you, man, it sounded pretty darn good.
I agree. It did come out a lot better than I'd anticipated. And my wife, she absolutely told me she was impressed with, you know, because we hadn't played together in so long.
Bro, that was the first time we've played in the same room in more than 20 years, I think. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, since I joined the Army.
So, I mean, we, of
Which
course,
was over
record
20 years ago.
music. Oh, but that's just us sharing tracks back and forth.
And Aaron, what was it that you said that when you came in my studio room here, we had kind of a funny discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Your room is smaller than I thought it would be. It looks bigger than it is. It's not like it's a small room, but for some reason, yeah, it's a little bit smaller than I expected. You know, like how when you meet somebody that's maybe famous, you go, man, I thought he'd be taller.
Well, and full disclosure, we had one of our favorite guys we've had on the program, a mentor of ours, absolutely, in John Hearn. And what did he say? He said to us down at Tac-Con, he said, listening to you, man, I just figured you guys would be bigger. Shout out to John out there. Well, I'm not particularly small myself right now this last year, but yeah. So, but that was funny. Yeah, it's kind of the same difference.
Yeah, it really is. It really is kind of surreal sitting here across from you for the last few years, sitting in that desk and then being in there. It's weird what your mind assumes about places, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, but we need to move on to some training topics. But I did want to say this. Eric, do you remember what happened when I went behind your drums and started playing? Dude,
I don't recall.
Man, I was struck already. I was like, holy cow. this snare sounds incredible,
Ah,
and it plays better than any snare I've ever played. And I mean, I'm not a great drummer, but I can play a little bit. And do the way you have it tuned, the tension and everything. It was almost like shooting a staccato with a 2.5 pound trigger in it or something. It was.
I agree with that assessment. Yeah, that custom one-off. I mean, one-off snare. It's a 5.5 inch maple Star Classic, but it's a one-off. I had it custom made,
Oh, dude,
and
it was sweet. Yeah, I'd never heard it in person, and especially never played it in person. So, or ever played it, right? So, yeah, it was cool. That's a killer kit.
yeah,
Well,
we had a lot of fun, man.
so Eric, you want to talk a bit about our shooting that we did? I want to make sure I don't leave out any of the jovial information here that we
Yeah,
wanted to.
absolutely, man. We want to start with day one, which our focus was on pistol.
Yeah.
And I got a little bit of accountability on it, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That
Well,
but yeah,
I do want to
good.
state this, that one thing that I was excited about now, and I think it's just that, so my tennis elbow didn't bother me a single time while we were out there. I think there's a combination of a couple of things. My tennis elbow, almost a year going now, almost
Man,
a year.
praise
It's
God, man. I'm glad that it worked. And you told me leaving. He's like, man, I don't think I even thought about it once. That's great, man.
So I think it's actually getting better, and I'm just simply making myself not wimp out and focus on it. You know what I mean?
There's an element to all of that for some of our injuries for certain.
Yeah, but I think it's finally getting better. So that was one good aspect of it. But we went ahead, since Eric, I am prepping to go to the Rangemaster Master Instructor Development course here in the beginning of October at Meade Hall in Oklahoma City.
Man, I'm so bummed I don't get to be there, man. That's okay. You're
Remember when
repping EvoSec. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Remember when I was checking in? I said, hey, Eric, so are we meeting up? Are you going to come stay at my place? And you're like, what are you talking about, Aaron? I'm talking about the freaking Master Instructor Development course that you're coming to, right? I'm not coming, dude. I told you I couldn't go. My schedule didn't work out.
Yeah.
Like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yep. Yeah, I'm bummed, but I'm so pumped you get to go. I was talking to my wife about it when her and I, after you left, man, I'll be honest with you. I mentioned it as you were leaving. Of course, I was sad you left, and we're like, yeah, let's get out of the house. Let's go to a early dinner. And I told her, I said, man, I'm bummed I don't get to go with Aaron to the Master IDC. And then I thought about the fact, and I think Tom Givens may listen to our show sometimes, and he's such a important mentor of ours and such an impact on those of us that are aspiring to help people be better. And that's one thing I don't want to miss out on, is taking that class under Tom. It's not that he's leaving us soon, but who knows how long Tom wants to keep traveling. That's the point, is and he's already reduced how far he will travel. And man, I'm jumping in that class first thing I can this year.
Yeah,
So
bro, you got to jump in it sometime this year, hopefully.
Yep. Oh, I will, absolutely.
So
but yeah, back to what you were saying though.
So I've been running through some of the quals from the previous classes just to just put a little bit of pressure on me in those types of quals. And I'll tell you, man, those are real valuable.
They are, man.
And
they are, absolutely.
For the most part, my main focus, I'm glad to say, has been instructing. I've been teaching quite a lot, practicing quite a lot, curriculum and all that stuff. but I haven't been doing a lot of time pressure drills and really testing myself the way I probably should be most of the time. So those quals are real good to go through. So we went through those quals a couple of times. We went through the advanced one, went through it 2 times each. And then after that, we both spent time at the 15-yard portion and the 25-yard portion. And let me tell you, it's almost, that's really where I got to do my work.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, number one, Aaron, you were doing very well. You outshot me on most of that. What I will tell you is that again, part of this is accountability too. Being on the road the last 3 months, I haven't been able to live fire. So I would say I live fired 2.5 months ago was the last time I got to live fire. That is not at all an excuse. What it is it is proof of how important it is if you're trying to maintain, a high level of capabilities, is that you're getting that live firing. But Aaron, I wanted to let you continue, but I think this is key. Is any of the stuff that was gun handling, speed of the draw, all of that is still solid, because I still got to dry fire. It was just, I was dropping some shots at 15 and dropping some shots at the 25 that I normally haven't been. Like the last time I shot that qual, I shot no, not that one. I'm sorry, Aaron. It was a basic IDC that I shot a perfect score the last time I did it. And man, I was not shooting that level when we were training. But man, I will tell you, I had other things planned, but I really just enjoyed shooting those with you. And we worked on the stuff we needed to work on after we ran through them. But go ahead, please.
One main thing I want to comment on is one of our guests we've had on a couple of times is the Olympic gold medalist Lanny Basham, and multi-world champion, not just the Olympics, but one of the most brilliant sources you can learn from when it comes to mental game. And when we've had him on the show, when we've talked about it afterwards and before, you don't understand how true it is that you perform in your mind. Your mental state is what makes the difference. I mean, we're talking about major percentage point differences.
Oh, absolutely.
Based on how you're thinking about your performance at that moment, how you're processing your performance during your performance, and what pressures you're letting get to you that you shouldn't, and the things that you're focusing on that you shouldn't, etc. And that mental side, these quals really brought that to my remembrance again. And
yep, yeah, absolutely.
And it literally was the mentality of, okay, I'm taking this qual for a class that I want to pass and get a certificate in, and I want to do well on this. Well, that mentality comes over you. And, when you're at 15 yards and at 25 yards, for instance, 25 yards on that qual, I believe you had 12 seconds to do the string. You and I never did it any longer than 9 seconds. And that was when we were trying to go slow. The pressure of trying to make those shots and try to do it in time constraint. There's a lot going on mentally that you can really work on. Would you agree?
Oh, I can't agree more. And I'm so glad that you brought up the mental management side, because again, this show is we never want to seem like it's about us just bantering on about what we're doing or what our guests are doing, but that it's a learning opportunity. And frankly, Aaron, bringing up the mental management side, which is something I'm typically very skilled at. I say very skilled. And you and I have that down pretty well. But I got frustrated enough a couple times because, frankly, when you're used to a performance level that becomes common because you're used to you're shooting a lot and you have your you have your patience, you have your trigger control, all that stuff. And then when you step away long enough that it's not there, your mental image had you at a X level before you shot, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm dropping shots I normally don't drop. And then you start going into that cascade of focusing on what went bad, and we know we can't do that. So I think the biggest aspect of that and why it's an important mental cue for our audience is that, man, that's so important, is that you don't end up, and Aaron, you may have remembered at one point I stepped off on it, said, I'm going to give myself a second here, because I had to get my mental game back into check, and I'd step off. Those last couple of shots don't matter. It's what I have in front of me now. And then all my performance. And also I'll say this too. Here's another aspect. We've been running the dot. I'm newer at the dot than you. But I've been running it long enough that it's a part of my shooting. And I think you'll agree, man, we both let ourselves get sucked into the dot.
Oh yeah. I had a note to bring that up, and two things. Yeah, that we both had some struggles with that the other day, and that was part of our performance too. I'm going to go full circle and just say, before I say the next thing I'm talking about on that, is that when you get in a cycle of doing things, and especially when you're doing things that you're good at, or like, again, for me, for instance, I'm practicing stuff that I'm going to perform for students that are beginning to intermediate level. And I've had some really good shooters at my classes too. But at the same time, I'm not having to put myself under some of the pressures that shooting some of these drills will put you under. And it just reminded me how much I'm really losing out, not making sure I'm doing this stuff periodically, even when I've got a lot of stuff going on where I'm prepping for classes and private lessons, etc. But I know for a fact that I think, Eric, that the pressure of the drills trying to perform where we've got a clock on, we've got some accountability to ourselves, that it kind of threw us all in a little bit of a discombobulated mental state, to where we allowed ourselves some technique slippage and induced some technique slippage when it came to the dots. Now, I wanted to say this. I just so happened to flip through YouTube and found a video of Ben Stoger talking about shooting red dots better. And if you've seen, I think I mentioned this before, bro, he has a Glock 34 with an SRO on it that is occluded all the time.
Yep.
And he meant a listener, or someone on his YouTube channel commented asking about, I need to really try occlusion, I just haven't. And Ben kind of like, as you were typing that, you should have been putting tape on your optic.
Yeah.
Just do it, And he's saying, he just flat out said, he goes, not focusing on the dot is always hard.
Yeah.
Dude, Ben Stoger said that. Now, again, I will make very clear, I like Ben Stoger for how much he puts out. Dude, he puts out incredible information every day for free. but he still pisses me off in a lot of ways, especially how he bagged on one of our friends at one point.
Yep.
But all that to say, he's still an incredible instructor and shooter. And for him to sit there and say, and he doesn't pull punches. I mean, he it he if he's saying something, he means it, especially when it's something like, yeah, I'm admitting, yes, not focusing on the dot is always something that we need to work on. So,
Well, Aaron, what I'd like to say, and I want to give full credit to our buddy Eric Gelhaus, because he was a person
Oh, yeah.
that excuse me, first exposed us to the occlusion using the painter's tape. And
100%. Yeah.
and it was like it was a major epiphany at that point in my shooting. I've not been dry firing occluded like I normally do.
Yeah.
And you know, when you and I decided, okay, we knew at that point what stuff we needed to work on, and we pulled back, and part of it, you also made the great suggestion, let's just freaking eliminate the timer. Do you know? And we eliminated the timer, and then I let myself, of course, at this point, we had posted targets over and over again. And at some point we're like, okay, this next few runs, we're just going to, you know, post anything that's out, or paste anything that's out, and then keep going. Well, the benefit of that, even with my older eyes, is I was like, screw it, man. I'm focusing on the round holes that are in the target. And all of a sudden, all my groups started tightening back up, because I was using that as my focal point, was the holes in the target. And man, it's just wild when you let yourself get sucked into the dot and how it affects your shooting, man. It does.
Well, and to make clear, to ram this point home, is that we're there shooting pretty well, right? It's not like we were just throwing everything away.
Not at all.
But it's just, you have to be realistic with yourself and see what thing it brings out, some things that you need to work on. And I mean, that's why we practice. That's why we do things on a timer, and why we use metrics. And because it's glaring, like reading a book. Okay, I clearly need to be working on this, and key in this is I clearly need to be working on my mental side.
Yeah, Aaron, I think that's the best way to put it. The way you did there is that although you and I were having fun together, we haven't been able to shoot together for a while, we still weren't out there to mess around. We were still there to train and practice. And that is what you do. You identify, okay, what do I need the real work on today? That's when you shoot a drill cold, which is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is stuff I need to work on right now. And that's the way you manage your practice. And so, yeah, exactly, man. I think that's a great way to kind of put the finer point on it. Well, any more on the pistol shooting that day, bro?
Yeah, bro, I know we did some more drills, but I honestly don't remember. I think we did some ancillary things, but we just didn't throw bullets downrange. But those drills were definitely the focal.
Well, I'll ask you this before moving on to day 2: is, bro, just curious, what did you think of the range? Because I've talked about it.
Oh man,
on
it's
this
an
show.
awesome range.
And you noticed I asked you, I said, hey man, I want you to take note of when we just left now from the house. I want you to take note when we arrive at the range.
Yeah, it was right at 15 minutes.
Yep. Man, you cannot beat that with a stick, man.
No, dude, it's a real nice range. Quite a few bays. You definitely may get caught with, like we, at one point on the second day, we wanted to do some pistol shooting after we got done doing some rifle stuff. But unfortunately, there were a lot of people there that day. But we still had a rifle range to ourselves.
Yep. Yeah,
And
and Aaron, it's funny. There's only one event that goes on there a month, and it's they have a cowboy action match there. And to be frank with you, we planned our trip around our birthday. I wasn't even considering that it was a match day, which was what it was. That's why it was at Aaron. Otherwise, there are days I open that range and close it half the time, actually. So,
I want to make sure I say this too. Now there were flying little demons everywhere. I don't think I've ever been around that many mosquitoes.
Yeah, and Aaron, I'm gonna volunteer. I'm gonna start spraying out there myself.
Probably a good idea. But
Yeah.
I want to make clear is it's a real beautiful range too. You're surrounded by real tall pine trees, and I mean the whole thing is just beautiful. I mean, just screams. You look around and you just think freedom, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a side note, you know, Aaron's had our EvoSec range there that Matt Reyna has offered to us for use there in the Tulsa area. I lost access to the range I was doing classes. Big bummer, you know. I frankly didn't talk about it a whole lot, and you know that was where I was gonna focus my classes. And Aaron, you might remember when this was day 2 when we were doing the rifle drills, is that I get a text from the range officer saying, "Hey, Eric, are you still doing your classes?" I'm like, "Well, you told me the board was shying away from, doing profit classes." And he's so it was a blessing all at the same time. He's like, "Nah, man, get me your insurance and your packet, and we'll get you started again." So that was huge news.
Yeah,
because you can have good shooting skills, but if you're not teaching on the line, man, that's a skill that that can perish too. So I've been teaching a whole lot this last year myself. Some of it's work, some of it was losing access to that range.
Yeah.
So
well,
that
thank
was
God.
really
Yeah,
news.
that's going to be a good place to hold your classes for sure.
It was just Kismet that he texted me when we were shooting. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think we were packing up our gear.
Yep.
Well, you want to segue here. Speaking of that, segue into what we did with rifles.
Yeah, man. I had a lot of fun both days. I definitely enjoyed the carbine. Again, that's something I hadn't been shooting as much as running carbine. And so when we talked about what we were going to do, we had done a show some time ago, which I can repost in the show notes. But you may recall, Aaron, that Claude Werner posted a blog post a little while back on the Ohio Police Rifle Carbine qualification. And we had talked about that on this show a while back because, man, we like quals, man. We like things that you can just run out and analyze your performance and again, back to what we were talking
in a wide range of important skills.
Yeah, so and there's not a whole lot of carbine quals out there that again, our shout out to Chris Lapre. He sent me a lot of stuff. Some of it's stuff that we can't post. But we also like standards. I love what Tom Given says about why you shoot the FBI qual, the 2019 FBI qual. That's because if you ever have to defend yourself, you can point to the fact that in a peer session and recorded session, You shot above 90%, the instructor level for the FBI qualification. I think it's important for you to be able to point towards, being at least qualified, or at least shooting a qualification that our law enforcement officers are held to. And again, before I get before we get stuff thrown at us or nasty grams, are all police qualifications great? No, we're not saying that whatsoever. Matter of fact, even discussion on this, we might add that the par times on this Ohio rifle qual are quite generous, right? They're very generous. But to Claude Werner's point, what he likes that for is new shooters and developing, folks that have even never fired a rifle before, that you can in one day have them, passing 80% on that qualification. And, I might add, we talk about this all the time, although it's important to be able to shoot at longer distances with the carbine. If a civilian gets into a gunfight with the carbine over 50 meters, 50 yards, yeah, man, that might be a legal conundrum. Mm-hmm. And this qualification is 50 yards and in, which I think kind of meets the standards for what most civilians need. And, it evaluates multiple shots on target, headshots, failure drill, shooting from the support side, which may not be as important as, but, you never know. That's still a good little throw in there. Reload, standing to prone, kneeling, and it just some good skills that are developed. Now I'll just ask you, Aaron. We shot it twice. We shot it at the standard of the police qual, Ohio. And Aaron, by the way, even though at that time I had not really delved deep in the scoring of the way that Ohio does it, I'm well aware of it now. But I'll just ask you, just the initial, we just decided we're going to shoot it at the regular par times, and your initial thoughts on that, because it was the first time you shot it.
Well, for one thing, it was just simply a lot of fun. When, even though there were all kinds of manipulations and types of shooting I've done, a million times with the rifle, it was just fun to have it all planned out and go down this list with these par times. Here are the standards this qual wants you to meet. And, the first time through, we both handedly, par times weren't an issue at all.
Nope.
I believe the first time we did it, we didn't go over par on anything, and we're actually way below par on most of it. And I think I was 3 points down. You were 2 points down.
Mm-hmm. And Aaron, that's what I was going to bring up. By those standards, by the actual, and let me state the target, the OPOTC RQT TAC-2 or -2 is the both of our first qualifications. We would only been down 1 point.
Okay.
So yeah, because part of that, Aaron, is similar to the FBI Q.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And again, for audience members, I'll post the target in the show notes and also the qual, so folks can look at what that
they
means.
Really
but
need
go ahead,
to, because I'm just saying, bare minimum, it's just a fun qual.
Absolutely.
It's not a lot of rounds. What was it? 25 rounds?
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I had a note here. In this time of expensive ammo, it's one box of ammo. If
it's 20 rounds,
5.56 is 20 rounds. You do a lot in 20 rounds in that qualification.
Yeah, and so that was it's just a very succinct. It's hard to say how great it is. A neat freaking drill.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I had a blast doing it, and I didn't shoot and see, this is where, of course, you shot this a lot better than I did too, which is which is great. That doesn't surprise me, but that is one thing, and it was fun since I usually shoot my SBR, which is what I have my dot, my Holosun 510 dot on, and I've got a riser on it too because of my neck is actually, Eric, if you recall, my neck is actually a half an inch taller than it was before surgery. And so
you're getting closer to my height again.
A lot closer. but that was one thing that I brought my LPVO rifle, my 16-inch or 14 and a half inch pin to 16 inches, my BCM with the Vortex LPVO 1-6. I have not shot that rifle very much, so it was fun forcing myself to do a little bit something uncomfortable on this qual too. Now, one thing, dude, trying to shoot off the support side with that, that sucked. That really sucked. Because dude, trying to get with my left eye, dealing with the eye box on an optic, it was a challenge for sure if you don't run LPVOs on that kind of stuff.
But you still shot it really well, and again, not doing a lot of carbine, you did extremely well, and again, we also, because I spoke about this on the air, because I looked at it and was like, you know what, I think for a skilled shooter, that shooting this qual in half the par time would be a darn decent task.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, I've done it before. We did it together. I'm just asking you, what did you think at that point?
Oh, bro, it was freaking tight, man.
Yep.
I know for sure I was well over par on at least the support hand. I mean, the support shoulder side section or string, and the reload. I think there were 3 times I was over par.
Maybe, Aaron. I thought it was only 2 that
Maybe
I have in
2.
my mind.
I'm just trying to think of which sections it was, but dude,
you go ahead.
Trying to get those. I think it was it 5 shots or 4 shots? Dropping to prone.
Okay, so that was 3 shots. So at that point, so let's talk about both those, because those were I'll back up just a little bit. So I think the most challenging parts with the half par was, at 25 center mass, you normally had 1.5 seconds one round from low ready. Well, if it's half par, it's 0.75. Right. So that's pretty tight. Which both of us did just fine on.
That's what I was going to say. That was kind of scary getting up to it when I first started, but I think I did that. Made the shot and under par, right?
Oh yeah, you were like, I think right at 7.7. Yeah, you were right at 0.75, somewhere right in there.
Okay.
You were barely under. Excuse me, barely. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't articulate. You were right on it.
Okay.
But the 25 yard is normally, so we're talking 5 rounds total. You normally have 12 seconds. So the half par was 6 seconds. See, 2 rounds loaded in the rifle. So you fire on the signal from low ready, 2 rounds, reload, and then drop to kneeling 3 more rounds. Right. So that's where on the half par time, my accountability, that's the one I shot over par. And I was shooting my shorty carbine.
Oh yeah.
And man, And Aaron, I actually did some smithing on it. I might be changing out some parts on it. So for the audience members out there, when I would reload, because I'm pretty aggressive at reloading, seating the mag, and it would override the latch. So, and in a major malfunction, it takes relieving the pressure and then banging on the end of the magazine to be able to get that out. So, I shot over par on that one. In the past, I'm sitting there. I have the first time I'd shot it and I had no malfunction. I shot it in 6.03. So I was over by 100th, but I gave that to myself. I think I said that on the air the last time. So those two are a bit spicy, but I think I mentioned to you, Aaron, I had been working Matt Pronka's CQB warm up. We're using predictive shooting, and I think those two strings, if shot predictive, would be a little easier. So maybe that's something that both of us can play with. But yeah, man, I that was when it actually really got fun. Was when we said, okay, let's half the par, and then it felt like, yeah, it was a challenge at that point. That was fun. So
I was at one point, I was half serious, but I was like, no, man, let's do this at like, hey, 75.75 par times. How about that, Eric? No, we're doing this half.
you know why? Because I knew you would still do well at it.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted it to be a challenge. But I think that brings us to the other point. And if Claude Werner out there, I believe he's listened a little bit, but I would like to talk to him about this. And that's, I think this particular drill with some minor modifications, I think the qualification as it is great, to get people, folks to be able to pass that as is, even on the Ohio target, is still a good, a good drill and a good qualification. I am interested in actually codifying the half par time and the 0.75 par time as 3 different levels just to play with. So I think, you and I are going to look at that, and again, it is a modification. So, and it's not like we're reinventing any wheel. We are borrowing from a drill that's already established. And I think that's valuable.
Oh yeah. It's a well thought out qual.
Yep.
And I mean, it just puts you through a lot of manipulation skills and shooting skills that are practical for someone that's going to need to use a rifle for close quarters defense. It's just really good. So why not build from that?
Yeah, and Aaron, I'm kind of the opinion as we do a little more carbine stuff with our clients, is I kind of feel on the same vein. Sometimes maybe one of the ending drills is running people through the basic one, and getting people to pass that and play around with it.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, so you talked about something that you got real quick. Where the heck did I put it? I know this. I already posted something online, so some folks have seen it already. No big deal. Well, it is actually, you know what? I'm going to walk that back a second. It really stinks when you come home from work and you grab your range bag and you head to the range, just knock out a quick training session, and you get to the range and you realize your timer is up on your dry fire pants. Like, oh, it's not a showstopper, obviously, but it does stink when because we try to plan our range trips, even if it's a quick one. I was like, okay, grabbing my bag. What am I working on? I have a plan. I mean, I can drive and come up with a decent plan. And so it's so neat that for our birthday, one of the gifts that I got, because I not too long ago mentioned, I was like, man, I need a second timer for my dry fire pants. I don't remember when I said it. I mean, maybe it was 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And my wife, she got me a little case too.
Cool.
And got me exactly what I normally use as another Pack 3 timer. And so that was a neat gift. Some people might not write home about that, but darn it, man,
Bro,
that's a pretty damn cool gift my wife got me.
and
the fact that she paid attention to a detail about my shooting, man, I've raised a good woman, man.
I was about to talk about some real high quality, marriage counseling and encouragement that she's listening to your love language. And then you just went and got all misogynist on.
Of course, I'm joking. My wife's great, man. Well,
I did want to say that, there's some cool guy timers out there right now. There's a handful of them out there that are really cool. At least a couple. I can't even remember the model, but the Commander something, real cool, fancy timer that There's a wait list practically to get one.
I've been trying to get one. Yeah. Every time
but the available. Pack, to me, the Pack is simple and real easy to use.
And I'm so used to it, man. I can do it without even looking at it.
Yeah.
When I'm setting, other than when I'm setting part-times, but it's fair. Now I will say when I'm dry firing though, man, I put some painter's tape over this because this sucker's loud now.
Oh yeah, you just beeped it through the microphone. I didn't complain, although I'm dadgummit.
Was it that loud, bro?
See me jerk back. Well, bro, I think that we've covered what we wanted to cover. We had some fun talk about the Tactical Twin birthday AAR. We got together for our birthday, but we made sure that we did some training because it would be a shame if the two of us were not in the same place and had some time and not go do some actual training, not just taking some classes and putting on classes, etc. The pressure wasn't on, but we put the pressure on ourselves when we got there, like we said, from a mental standpoint. But we just had a blast. It was a blast seeing your wife, seeing your dogs, and getting to play some music in the same room with you. Hey, bro, wasn't my little red Dr. Z, isn't that a badass amp?
Yeah, man. It sounded great, man. I mean, of course, it's a phenomenal amp, and yeah, man, it sounded excellent. Yeah, like I said, Janice said she was impressed.
Cool.
Yeah, and yeah, it was fun.
Well, here,
man.
So as we close out here, bro, so you need to keep working on that tune, and I'll keep working on it. So the next time we get together, we can put a lot more of it together. Hey, it'd be dang ambitious to try and get that whole tune down. But hey, if we can get, let's just say the second chorus on through the bridge and end it out, that'd be quite a feat. And we'll record it this time.
Yep, absolutely. And Atlas Rise too, Metallica.
We were talking about working on that too, weren't we?
Yeah. I was glad we worked on Pneuma instead.
I was playing some Pneuma last night when I was in my living room practicing.
Cool.
Some cool guitar riffs. Adam Jones, man, pretty freaking cool. Killer
Danny
guitar
Carey,
sounds,
man.
Oh yeah.
And I'll just say this. I mean, since we're on the subject, drumming wise, it's one of the hardest songs I've ever attempted to play. And really, it's not the sticking and or the drum beats as much as it's simply the time signature changes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardest part of it. Now, let me back up a second. I'm not saying at the drum fills. And I mean, he uses rudiments that a lot of really killer drummers don't use. And it's not often you hear 6-stroke rolls used in a lot of stuff. And he uses it through a couple of times. And it's not that that's a hard rudiment. It's just when you use it inside, rock music, it's unique. So, well, bro, man, I love you, man. I wish we'd have done some of this recording when we were here, but we knew it. We said up front it was going to be difficult to sit down and record because we had so much planned. But all right, man, we'll have a good evening, man.
You too, bro. Take it easy. I'll talk to you soon. Love you.
Love you too, man. Bye.